I'll make sure I sit over here further.
All right, Joel, join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Yeah.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, the room cleared out fast. We don't have an audience here. No. Yeah, stretch yourself out. So, all right. With that, we'll call the February 1st, Damariscotta Board of Select Board to order. If it's all the same with the board members, I'm going to bounce ahead here a little bit in the official action items. I think we have Simmons here. Do you want to come on up again? So yeah. Yeah, back again. Oh, how you doing this evening? Yeah, not a problem. If you just want to state your name and town in there, if you could. So. Yeah. Hi, Danielle. So, from what we've been presented from Andy, it looks like we're where we need to be, and we've had to get some paperwork moving around and whatnot. We'll jump through some hoops, but it's like you've made a pretty good effort in getting there. So, yeah, we can make it real quick and simple. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept Danielle's application for Above and Beyond Cannabis LLC.
All right. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, Josh seconds. Any discussion? No? All those in favor? You're all set. Just like that. So, how close are you to being open? How much do I have left to do?
We have the flooring and we need to finish the trim and then we're pretty much there. Donald needs to come back and finish the plumbing, but
Yep.
probably a week.
All right.
Thank
Sounds
you
good.
so much.
All right. Thank you.
See ya.
Oh. Thank you. All right. Awesome. We have minutes from last meeting, January 18th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of January 18th.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Andrea seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, we've got.
I wasn't.
We weren't here.
I
We've got
wasn't
three.
here.
Tom, yeah, that's right. You guys were-
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, you said aye right there. All right, financial reports, payroll warrant number 36.
I'll move payroll warrant number 36.
Thank you,
Second.
Josh. Lou seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, motion carries. Accounts payable number 37.
I'll move accounts payable warrant number 37.
All righty. Thank you, Josh.
Second.
Here a second from Tom. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, motion carries. Citizen comments and general correspondence. Do we have anybody? No, everybody left the live chat there. So Andy, anything, anything from your end? Anybody?
Not that I'm remembering.
No, all right. All right. So we can move on to town manager items. I think we have some capital project updates to share.
Yes, for Miles Street, my understanding is that we're waiting on the engineers to finalize the contract terms still. Asked the contractor if he's heard much, and so we're still kind of waiting on that to close. I know some of it's been a little compounded in say confusing perhaps, in that we know we're at the same time we're trying to finalize what went out to bid and button that contract up. We've been talking about all these change orders and kind of additions to try and get all the way to Bristol Street. So I think the contractor is trying to get all of that just included in one so they can purchase all the materials. And so later on in the meeting, I do have the something for the board to consider that would authorize the expenditure of funds, some from the reserve, some from bond proceeds. So we could have all of that ready to go. Hopefully they can close the loop on that sooner rather than later.
You think they're really going to go ahead and, they're really going to start in March?
That's the plan.
Okay.
I mean, they need the weather to work, but if they get through this, this cold snap here and the weather, follows as it's projected at the moment, I think their thought is they could start working on some of that causeway and bringing in some material to kind of build that out a little bit.
That'd be great.
So they're still planning to move ahead, even though we don't have it signed yet, but working towards that in good faith, and that we'll get there. So I think the only holdup really is just getting all these exact details and terms and in the money part. So we'll take that on. The let's see, parking lot, I had that, there was nothing new to report at the time I wrote this. We met with the engineers yesterday. And they've sent along a draft update, an update or a drafted update of the preliminary engineering report and some cost estimates. So I wanted to talk about that quickly. When they put all that together and kind of updated the numbers, I believe it came in at 3.985 is the remaining cost. And we don't have 3.985 left in our project budget. So we started to talk about what items might we look to cut out to submit to EDA and say, here's the rest of the project. It's within what we have available for funding. Will you allow us to proceed now? So we started looking at mostly two things. The park and living shoreline improvements were estimated at 311,000 as they packaged it, and included in the parking lot reconstruction, that 2.635 is broken down in that spreadsheet that has a lot of different items on that. Originally it included almost a little over $700,000 worth of utility work in that original 2.6 number. And so we looked at that. Some of that was to include varying utilities. I asked George Parker, as he's been on this project and been around here a lot longer, what his thought was about if we, went back and said, we're removing the burying of the utilities. Is that something that would be palatable to folks? Otherwise, we're talking about having to basically raise that amount of money to bury utilities. Part of it was with the permanent wall going in was going to have to be part of that, and relocation of some of those poles and lights. Without that permanent wall going in, we don't need to do that. And so on its surface, with me coming in looking at it in the engineer's perspective, is this now a cost element that could be removed? Is this something that looks nice and we'd like to do, or is it something we have to do? And so if we remove that and cut back on some of the soft costs of the landscaping costs and the benches and all the other things that would go in the park up front, we can get that project cost down, they think, as that's estimated, to 2.8 million. And so we've got just about $3 million in the project budget left between EDA's grant funds and then our own funds. And then you'll see on that sheet, they have the available alternatives, which include all those broken down park items. So that's what they're looking at right now to submit to EDA. And I just wanted to check in with the board and see about that utility aspect of it.
Do you remember when the whole project was going to be 2 million?
Remember the estimates they gave and the material costs? And I just laughed when I looked at it.
The original engineer's estimate was like 2 million, whole project.
No problem. Get it done.
And we did, we all kind of chuckled and said, well, that's interesting. Sure, let's do it now. So, so I'm not laughing out of, it's not funny, but it's just,
I just want to know if they ever hit a deadline. Yes.
boy, that's a great question. Yeah, some of it was EDA, been hung up.
Yeah,
and
but
whatnot, but
just
yeah.
don't know if anybody's ever met a deadline.
The original EDA project that was submitted to them was 4.037 million.
Yeah.
And then we had additional local funding from other reserves and donations that were gonna, I think, add another $300,000 or $400,000 to that overall project. We had to try when we were do the reporting and track this. We have to kind of track that EDA project a little bit separately. So that's what they were working with. And so we're feeling if we remove those utilities in that $700,000 approximate item, we feel like there'd be an opportunity to add back in those park items through community effort and maybe some sponsorships of certain aspects of that. And maybe we can build some of it ourselves. Like we could probably find a way to build picnic tables ourselves.
We need to move on this, because
Right.
this thing is a moving target, and we can't keep the EDA holding pattern, because we'll just lose them.
But the park alternatives are things, that's money that we have time to raise.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't have
So
time
to
to
come back.
raise the base
Right.
what we basically have
Yeah,
to do.
exactly. So we need to pare out what we can, and the biggest chunk of that beside the park is the utilities.
Yeah, I mean, we
Utility
gotta
work,
get,
yeah.
gotta get.
If you can't pay for it, you can't pay for
The
it.
main point of this project was to improve the back parking lot drainage.
Yeah.
And make the back parking lot better.
Yeah,
And then it morphed into sea level rise and everything,
Yeah.
and
yeah,
we're
that's
just
what
gonna
it-
have to go back to the basics.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
gotta get
But
moving.
you know, we do have sea level rising.
I know that, but we're going to figure, that's figured into this. But we need to make sure we get all our drainage and everything.
And
Yeah.
the numbers you have that are updated that we're looking to submit include $175,000 for a deployable flood barrier that had been
Right,
talked
that's in
about.
there.
Includes
So we're
fire,
sti-
right.
Yeah, we still got
The
that.
difference is they're lengthening it out to be the majority of the length of the park, which is before it was gonna be mostly
Right.
hardened, and then we'd
Yeah.
have some
Yeah.
deployable sections. So,
Yeah.
you know, the hope is that, you know, because, you know, again, we have to really work with EDA to show them that it's still going to improve provide a benefit to these buildings and property owners downtown. We can still mitigate flood risk.
Right.
And the hope is that if we can at least get the deployable wall in there, they'll see that as, yes, it's not the hardened FEMA approved, lowering the flood elevation, you know, concern, but you know, we can actually do meaningful
But it's an effort.
mitigation if there's a
Yeah.
big, bad
Yeah.
enough storm coming. So
Absolutely.
it would come with a trailer. And so it's basically a package that you could just roll out and deal, you know, unroll or roll it out and put it up if you need to. So the hope is that that shows them that we're still trying to get to the intent of what the project had been presented to them as, and keeps them ready to go for us. So we're planning to submit this by the end of next week with the hope that the EDA committee reviews it in February for an answer.
Well, we'll be able to
Spring.
put it out to bid March 1st, right? It just doesn't say what year.
Yeah, Josh. Yeah,
Gosh.
yeah. So I think we're all
Yeah, we all. in
giving your head
agreement.
not move, pair out what you have
Yeah.
to. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, you know,
Well,
it'd be
so
nice. Sorry, Andrew, go ahead. Yeah.
That's a little scary that we've already spent that on design.
Oh, yeah.
And
Engineering
Yeah.
and design. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
probably no deadline.
So-
to
I
that.
don't know where the
Huge-
pipes are going.
Huge chunk of the cost, yeah.
Gosh.
And a lot of that's dictated by the funds coming in. You have to use, you know, engineering firms.
It's only gonna get more
Yeah.
expensive the longer we
Yeah.
sit here.
Be nice to have the utilities, cleaned up, but it is expensive to put power underground. Yeah. Redundant lines and, so. Yeah.
So we'll move forward with submitting that revised scope with, unless they tweak those numbers a little bit more with that scope of work
Yeah, yeah.
identified there, and
Yep.
Yeah.
the hope that we have
We don't
something,
have- we don't have it.
a response soon.
Yeah. It's, no,
There a motion on this
It's
or
gonna-
just,
no, you don't need a motion, right? We just,
No, I
keep
don't think
moving,
we-
keep moving. Yeah, we're just continuing. It's a head nod.
Hodgson Street, Terry Ann had checked in with CDBG. She's hopeful that and like to see the project for Hodgson Street out to bid before this month's end. Andrew said it's waiting on him just to review the bid specs. They did have a staff member that I guess that pulls together some of the road specs, you know, for that document that was out for a couple of weeks. So that kind of delayed him. Because he said he was planning on doing that for January. And now we're February 1st. So he says it's on his desk and he just needs to review it, and otherwise saying it'll be out this month.
Okay.
The DOT I had reached out to the two that were working on the business route 1 multi-use path or sidewalk from the Hannaford parcel to the school. The PSAC committee group was wondering where does that sit, and is there an update on it? And so I had reached out right before Christmas, and I think 2 weeks ago, I had gotten an email back from one of the folks that was working on it and said that they're nearing completion on the preliminary design work. And that they'd look for public comment probably before February, start to look for public comment before February's over. So Isabel and I set up a meeting with him to understand timeline and cost, who's paying for this. And so there's more to come on that. And we have another meeting with them tomorrow. So we'll get a better sense of what that timeline looks like. I still get the sense that it's a couple of years probably before any sort of construction, but this is not the first step of the design aspect, right? They've spent the last year or so putting the design stuff together. They would have to go and acquire right of ways, and once this design gets approved, go get right of ways. So there's a long process still. I think when you look at their process for big projects like this, you're talking 5 probably years
Or more,
from start to end.
10,
Um,
10.
Going on since I moved here in '06.
so my understanding is that the town's already signed an agreement with DOT. He sent it to me after the meeting because he told me that the town already signed an agreement with DOT to do this project. And that our share was 20%. So looking at it a little bit
That
with
was
this,
10 years ago.
that was in 2020. My understanding and talking with Isabel is that it looks as though the TIF program was among other things. And so with that underperforming as it is, I don't know that it would have the full dollar amount needed at this point, but you have the opportunity with a TIF program to loan against the district and the revenues that would be generated over that time.
Well,
Unless we modify and amend the TIF district, I don't see at the current pace that program in the next 20 plus years bringing in the money we need probably to pay for this project, let alone other ones. So I think it really puts the importance on reviewing that TIF program, modifying that, and getting those to the town to consider, and hopefully incorporate properties that are going to realize some money so that these projects like this can get done. Otherwise, we're looking at telling the taxpayers, hey, we need to raise we don't know the number yet, probably between $200,000 and $400,000 for our share.
Yeah.
Over the next 2 to 3 years, or continue to delay it until we can get it. Or get the TIF program to work for us in a way that can fund things like this, so it doesn't raise the tax rate on people now. Or as much.
Okay.
So with Isabel leaving, you were going to work with her to look at the TIF program to see what recommendations could be made to try to attract more people.
Yep, she started working on it. We've engaged Amanda a little bit just to let her know we're doing this, and we're going to need her assistance on some of the legalese of the agreement. And her hope is that she'll be able to have a draft of the amendments before she leaves.
Okay.
So we are working on it. At that point, I or a combination of I and some other person or entity will pick it up and continue that. We did have any other questions on capital projects?
Church Street?
Church Street.
Nothing.
I mean, now we're
Nothing new.
just on a hold at the moment. Yeah. I did send in the letter of support to the DMR contact we were working with to send in with their grant application to the federal program. So that's as much as I've done on that, but there's no meaningful progress there, as we're just trying to see if we can find grant funds to pitch in. Yeah. Any other capital project?
Now, was a contractor monitoring the culverts that have been replaced on Egypt Road to repair that every storm that gets gouged out?
Do they need to be replaced again?
And they probably ought to touch them up.
From plowing. Yeah.
They probably ought to touch them up again.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, they reacted pretty quick. I mean,
quick, yeah,
after we let them know that they needed to hit those, they did that within a day. So
yeah, it's
I'll
not
send
every single one, but there's a couple that are
Yeah.
still.
There's a couple good bone jars
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've got a couple on Keenwoods that we had replaced this year that I guess we didn't end up getting patch in. So we also have a couple that we've got to chase.
Yeah.
So what's a good reminder? I'll shoot them a contractor a message, and it's been pretty reactive so far when those things come up. So last week, when we had that rain event, I know there were some community members that were inquiring about the winging back of the snowbanks leading into the week, I guess leading up to that rain event. It's a good example of why it's important to get your snow to the ditch line, and ideally you have ditches so that as snow melts or rain falls, it can hopefully stay in the ditch. And so on Church Street, it's an example of us not maintaining that drainage system as well as we probably should be. And so the shoulders on Church Street had kind of washed out pretty substantially, and just on that kind of northern end of that guardrail, heading up towards the light at Biskie. There was a section of road above that guardrail that washed out that was a little more substantial. So we had to, Hager was good and really quick to respond. I called them and they came down and kind of opened up that ditch line with their machine and got water flowing where it should be. CMP actually came in and replaced one of the poles at the top of that guardrail because the base of it was pretty well exposed. You had some pretty sizable rocks that shouldn't be exposed that were there, and it had a pretty good list to it. So they actually came and replaced the pole. I do still need to continue to call someone in between CMP and LCI to remove the pole that's laid in the ditch that they left.
Oh, dear.
They do that sometimes.
Hook up to it and drag it down the road.
Well, we might have to.
The shed.
We might have to. It shouldn't be on us.
Flag on it, you'll be covered.
It shouldn't be on us to have to do, but if they don't, we're gonna have to.
Yeah.
Because it's just laid right in the ditch.
That's right, yeah.
So we're okay.
Do that
until we start
sometimes.
getting rain.
Leave some poles laying around, so.
There were a couple other spots that, we had to go out and monitor. But I think overall, unless something came up that others are aware of that we didn't see on our roads, then there wasn't anything too substantial, but it's a good reminder of making sure we do more to maintain our ditches and drainage system.
We weren't the only town around that had issues.
We weren't,
No,
but the issues we had, I think we could see were pretty simple of not having a deep enough ditch or cleaned out ditch, and that other things couldn't have happened, but
Yeah.
had mentioned again, Isabel had presented Sarah and I with her intent to resign when we met last week, and she did follow that up with a letter last Thursday, Thursday or Friday, and so she's given a 4-week notice, so that gets her through most of February.
Okay.
Sarah and I are still trying to figure out what kind of the interim and then the long range plan is for filling the work she was doing. We did have a meeting today with one entity that in the short term could pretty well plug in and work with us on. My biggest concern is the site plan review. If we get any big applications in, we have to respond and get that in a timely manner. And so, making sure we have someone who can do that. The comp plan is not a small endeavor, and that's another one. Obviously, that was a big piece of what she was doing. The rest.
Done a very good job at that. It's gonna be tough to keep that going.
how did we get her to begin with?
How do we what?
How did we get her to begin with?
We did a search did a number of interviews.
So we need to do another search.
Yeah, you were part of the interview,
Yeah,
John, right? You were part of the
yeah.
interview process on that one.
I mean, she was very good.
Yeah.
I think right now, Sarah and I's plan a week since we found out is to continue through the budget process, assuming we're gonna do a shared planner still. I think, she's optimistic. We're both optimistic and think that both the boards, this board and her board, would still want to continue to find ways to work the two towns together. And that's in our minds, that continues to be a position, in kind of a way that the two towns can work together on a very common thing in coordinating projects,
sense.
timelines, and,
Yeah.
ordinances that are consistent if they want them to be between the two towns. And so that in our minds seems like a good position to try and share. So we're going to carry that in the budget as we have it now. And then kind of see again how this works in the short term, and if we want to continue whatever that solution is, or put it out, to try and advertise, which we'd probably try and do in March or April, with the hope to have someone here by July.
We'll be okay
Yeah.
without someone until July.
Well, we're working on the short term, trying to find
Short-
the
an interim.
when I think of the short term, for me, that's through the rest of this fiscal year, realistically, because if you found someone even today, the likelihood, or put it out today, the likelihood is you're talking 2 months probably at best, before you get someone here. And more likely, I think the last effort was, 4 or 5 months before you found,
At a minimum.
went through one
Wasn't it?
process.
I would
and-
say so, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Well, it's unfortunate, but we'll, keep something in the interim and.
Yeah, the first pick, he resigned after before he even started.
mhm.
First accepted and then.
Okay. Thank you, Andy.
Election demand.
All right. Good on reports there.
That's all I had.
All right. Well, we can move on to some action items. So we have a handful of renewals here. For liquor license renewal for Ann's Book
Make
Bistro.
a motion that we approve the liquor license for Ann's Book Bistro,
Second.
being a
Tom,
client.
Lou, any discussion? All those in favor? 4, 5, yeah, jumped right on that one, didn't they? We have a liquor license renewal for the Penalty Box 2. Didn't see anything out of the ordinary there.
So I'll make a motion to
John?
approve liquor license renewal for Penalty Box 2.
Thank you, Josh. Here a second.
I'll second.
Andrea's gonna second. Any discussion?
Everybody drinks.
All those in favor? All right, Tom? Good.
Yeah.
think
Yeah, all
everybody-
right, 5, yeah. And on the same note, we have an entertainment and special amusement permit renewal for the Penalty Box.
I'll make a motion to approve the entertainment special amusement permit renewal for Penalty Box 2.
Thank you, Josh.
Second.
Andrew's gonna second, yeah. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, we got everything there. The poll location application,
Is that the pole dancing and the entertainment? at
that's
the-
Sorry.
This is
Keep
for a
it light.
pole on our property at Vine in Maine, where the Information Bureau is. They want to move
oh, they want
the
to.
pole there now. They want to relocate it
Okay,
Note there.
about 20 feet.
that thing's going up pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's looking good.
So they want to move it about 20 feet to the west on Vine Street.
Is that gonna bother anyone on Vine Street?
It's still on town's property, as
Yeah.
far as I understand
Okay.
it.
So this is pretty standard. I didn't see
And they
anything
have to
ordinary
do it,
there. For
so.
standard approval on it. Yeah, yeah. So, I'll make a motion to approve the poll location application for Lincolnville Telephone Company / Tidewater Telecom Incorporated.
I'll second.
Thank you, Josh. Any discussion? Those in favor? Okay, motion carries. The Marine Law Enforcement Services for Lincoln County Sheriff's Department, that was just, yeah, it looked like just changes in dates in there, right? There was nothing
All
substantial.
I thought it was, yeah.
Make a
that's all.
motion to approve that enforcement service agreement. I would say that my street is a shellfish location that they monitor regularly.
Oh, okay.
Down there all the time.
Yeah,
But in fact, in the last 2 days, he's been down there twice.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
they're doing a good job.
see him around.
He's
So
awful,
Tom's-
he's awful shellfish down there.
Yeah, no, he's policing. it, believe me.
ponds.
Second.
Tom's made a motion, Lou's seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. Andy, where'd you hide the warrant there, for the special town meeting? It was in there somewhere.
I think
right here.
page 50. Oh, I don't know if I gave
47?
that, what is 47?
I had it in front of me a minute ago.
It's
so-
right
Ah,
after
there you
the-
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, right
47.
there.
Shellfish.
I did,
Shellfish.
I took a crack at writing articles. Well, one's pretty easy to do, but 2 through 4, it has to do with the ordinance revisions. I think that covers, I didn't ask Amanda to review those particular warrant articles. I did ask her to review Article 5, which is about the transfer of the sewer line.
Yes.
So her and the attorney, Marcia DeGear for the sanitary district, I've been working to make sure that language works for both parties. There were no substantial changes from what you had last seen. And so I believe we're at a point where if we want to call the special town meeting for that, we can have it posted in a manner in which we could have this vote at the next meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah. On the
The
15th.
idea, if we want to approve this, the sanitary district should be taking it up at their board meeting next week, or no, sorry, the 8th. Yeah, next week.
Yeah.
And so if they, for some reason, if that doesn't go, or if there's an issue, we could still vote down this article if we needed to, if it didn't work, but at least it puts it into play if they're okay with it and they approve it. then
Yeah.
We can do the special town meeting the week after and be good to go and at least have that part of the project complete.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good. Do we hear a motion?
Oh, you got it right in front of you.
I do. Let me read the whole thing here.
There you go.
Yeah, so this is the warrant for the, special town meeting the 15th. So I'll make a motion to approve a warrant for special town meeting for February 15th, 2023 at 5:30 at the Damariscotta Municipal Building.
I'll second.
Yes, thank you for the what do I want to call it? Yeah, Josh seconded. All right, we
A
got it.
warrant.
Yeah. It's a warrant. Thank you. Don't mind me. Yeah, I'm not a professional at this. All right. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, motion carries. Good. And then we have the bond fund authorization for Miles Street. So this is cleaning up some, we've put some money out there, but you need an authorization to move it.
Well, yeah,
To be right.
kind of sort of. I think, it was money had been identified in capital plans during the
Yeah.
budget process. Those warrant articles, when they're voted on, appropriate money to the capital reserves. The board would then authorize the expenditure of the capital reserves at a meeting, a regular scheduled meeting. And so, we're at a point where we need to get this contract finalized, and with the addition, we talked before about where's the additional funding, if we can find it, to go to Bristol Street with the road work. So from what I could see, there was two budgets in which identified capital reserve funds for this project, both in 21's budget and 22 budget, $100,000 each. There was also the ARPA funding at a special town meeting that was approved for $185,000 to go towards this for drainage work. And then I tried to put all the other funds that have come in, both from the hospital and private donations in there in that order. And so the last amount there, bond proceeds, we don't have a hard number on it, just kind of like a ballpark so far. And so that's part of that. Anticipating that, I'm anticipating if we wanted to consider up to $60,000 from the bond proceeds to be able to go towards that there, I think we could do that, keeping Egypt and Belvedere costs within a certain benchmark, and then that still affords the 750 to be able to go towards Church Street project. So I think we'd be comfortable with up to $60,000 from that bond proceed. It has made a little bit of money with the interest rates we have right now, the amount of capital that, principal amount that's sitting in there. I estimated about $20,000 has been generated from it just sitting in the bank account.
It's nice for a change.
So if you were open to considering that up to 60,000 from the bond and the $200,000 from the paving reserve, we'd have what we need to button up that contract.
Get that
from what
contract
I
done,
understand.
All right, I'll make a motion to authorize the 200,000 to be spent from the paving reserve for the Miles Street project as previously proposed in the capital improvement plans for 21 and 22. And authorize an additional sum not to exceed 60,000 from the bond proceeds that were approved for road and sidewalk improvement projects, including engineering, design, and any other related costs.
Thank you, Tom.
Second.
Lou, who's gonna second? Any discussion?
I would just like to say that the bond wasn't supposed to be used for that at the special town meeting. And I look at this as a loan from the bond to the project.
Hmm.
But the 60,000 ought to come back in some form from a next budget or two budgets from now to go back if we run short of Church Street.
Yes.
Yeah, when I went back and looked at the warrant article for the bond, wasn't voted and asked in a way that limited it only to, I know it was talked
Right.
about.
It
the
was
intent was that it was spirit.
presented
the
as,
spirit of it,
spirit of
yeah.
it as.
So we should be able to, I believe, cover those as long as, the reality is we know we don't have enough in the bond that we had gotten to do all three roads that it was intended to go towards, and only those three roads that had been talked about. We
Right.
don't. So the grant monies that we need to go find to continue Church, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I just think it needs to come back in some form at some time.
Yeah.
But
we
that,
can-
apparently that's not in writing, so do you want to make an amendment?
I would like to, but I'm not the guy that made the
All right,
motion and seconded.
How does anybody else feel about
Make
an
an
amendment to that?
I can't, not to his.
Well, we
Made
do,
it.
what would have to happen right now is we'd have to. Yeah, we'd have to vote and either kill it, but how do we,
I can just modify what I
You
stated.
modify your.
modify it, yeah.
I just think we need to, I don't mind taking it out to borrow it, but I think it needs to come back. In the short term, we need to do this,
Mhm.
but it needs to come back within a capital budget. Back to it, or at least have access to that 60,000.
Yeah, in my mind, we just put it in the capital fund
Right.
request, and I wouldn't, I guess I wouldn't word it and think about it in a way of borrowing and paying back the loan, if you will, from the loan that's been. And in
Well, we
my
kind of
mind,
are because,
well, in some way, but in my mind, we just say we need to fund our reserves a higher amount, right? And so if we want to put that 60 into the paving reserve, that's kind of, there isn't really a reserve set up. The bond's not a reserve account, right? And so it's a
Right,
bond
it's a
proceed
bond.
to work off of the projects that were identified, and the way it was worded and voted on, it's more broad to the road work in general.
You might be saying the earmark, the 60,000 to go back to the Church Street project.
As long as it's available to go back into the capital reserve and it's 60,000 and we know moving forward that that's in the capital reserve for Church Street project. Because we just taken 60 out to cover miles.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, we were gonna do it anyway for in the capital program,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's
Right.
just gotta be go back in that's available to that project.
So you're just looking at keeping whatever, something earmarked for. that,
Earmarked
to the
back to
60,000.
cover it.
Authorizing an additional
enough.
sum not to exceed 60,000 from the bond proceeds that were approved for road and sidewalk improvement projects, including engineering, design, and any other related costs, provided that the capital budget retains equivalent $60,000 for future projects like Church Street.
Lou, you gonna second it again? You already seconded it. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All right, motion carries. So.
Thank you for all that wording, Tom.
You did good.
Say it again, Tom?
I didn't write it. He wrote it. I just.
Put his little twist on the end.
Might
there,
have
so.
modified.
Andy, that it on your end? Any other items sneak in on us?
I don't think so.
Good, okay. Discussion items, John, start with you down here.
Yeah, well, being a participant in the comprehensive plan thing, there's a lot of people that are really dedicated to that project. Unlike me, I sort of drop in, but have they been informed about this change of events?
I haven't sent him an email. I don't know if Isabel has yet.
Well, I
We
don't think so, because I didn't get a copy.
I mean, we don't have a follow-up plan. I guess in my mind, right? We say it happened and here's how we're
It's
gonna try
have a
and.
big impact on a lot of those people. They're really dedicated.
Fine.
Not like I am.
You were there that day.
Some really dedicated people
So,
that put in a lot of time. Okay, so I would recommend you talk to Isabel and have a plan as to how you're gonna communicate it.
Yeah, that's
You know. Am I passing?
you
a
were,
good idea.
Now,
When I've-
No, are you? passing?
Absolutely, yeah. That's the process, right? So we bring personnel changes to the board.
Well, I know,
All of the work she's been working on.
He's gonna get out real quick. I would try.
Understand. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I gather. I've heard from the folks that are on the committee. They've enjoyed working with her on it
That one
stuff.
you
So,
saw,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah, they're all.
Yeah.
fine.
I don't, because I wasn't there.
Thank you, Tom. Lou, anything to add?
Two things. One, are we getting any unusual requests for assistance in our charity fund
It's part of the budget process.
as far as people coming in?
Oh, individuals coming in.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be a better question for Cheryl, as she's the primary, she's the GA administrator. I haven't heard any. I know there was a one within the last couple of weeks that I think was referred to the Philbrook Fund. As well as the Lincoln County Fuel Fund. But other than that, I haven't heard much.
Second thing, I'd like to thank Andy for all the hard work he's put in to get into this position, to providing us with the information that we need. And I think you're doing an excellent job and I applaud you.
I'll second that.
Me
Yeah, I
too.
think we'll make a motion on that and absolutely. Oh. Been a lot of work on him in a short
Yeah.
period he's been here so far.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I agree.
Good
Yeah,
eye.
So he's
Great job.
extremely responsive to phone calls, I found anyway.
For the most part.
Pretty well.
I'll get all of them in as quick as I should, but. it's trying.
Just didn't want to do a chat there. Andrew, any discussion items this evening?
Yes. I would like to bring up a discussion to be started by the select board about Airbnbs in our village. I really feel strongly that I know Portland just passed something and I feel like it's we don't have enough workforce housing. We don't have enough housing. And I feel like our village, if we're going to have Airbnb people, the owners should be living in the house. That all of the out-of-state people that move in and buy houses and they Airbnb it out, well, that's really nice for them. That is not helping our lack of housing. We're desperate for housing. And I think it's something that I would really like us to just, I don't know, look
What
into.
was what did Portland, what was their proposal? I hadn't seen anything.
They did do a referendum, having people, I believe, that if you wanted to Airbnb, you had to live in a house,
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
which precludes just anyone coming here and, I mean, we really,
Oh, I see.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know, so my concern mostly is about workforce housing. We don't have enough. How do we get more? We have businesses that desperately need people. And part of our responsibility is to think about, how do we keep people in this village? I know we do a lot for the elderly and the disabled, and that's wonderful and it's important. But we really need to start thinking about how do we keep the young people, the workforce people here? I mean, we have people that commute from Appleton or Hope or
Housing.
Rockland or, just to work in our village. We need workers.
Or let's cut services in and make the tax rate go down, and then way people don't have to pay so much, and then they don't have to rent out the place to pay the taxes.
Yeah.
So it's all a continuing thing.
Housing is tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
I understand it's totally tricky.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
But I guess.
Well, we did talk at one time about, with the planner about
Somebody else has got
identifying likely places for that kind of housing and then trying to attract developers by talking
Yeah.
about demand, okay?
I signed it.
But that's sort of gonna be
Signed it
on
on the main. I just
hold without a
thing so
planner.
They don't know who it is.
Well, so Andrew, when you started, started to
Yes.
talk about, the potential for the consideration of regulating short-term rentals.
Yes, I did.
Which, maybe part of the workforce housing, part of an answer for workforce housing could potentially be there. I think some of the towns that have implemented the short-term rentals do it for various reasons, and it'd be interesting to see now that a lot of them have been doing it,
Yeah.
has that created an opening for home ownership or workforce housing opportunities? I think there's a lot of things we can assume or think about on the surface, whether that would or wouldn't work in solving that issue. But perhaps the workforce housing issue is kind of, maybe that's one piece of a solution. And if, so I guess what do we want to focus on? The workforce housing needs, or do you want to come at it from the perspective of regulating short-term rentals in the hope that it?
I think I guess I feel like maybe I would be more than happy to start looking into what are the consequences of having something like, does it work? That's the big thing.
Mhm.
Does it really work?
I mean, are you thinking we'd start a committee of housing of sorts, or look to hire either through staffing or a consultant to focus in on the issue? Or I think there's a lot of ways we can tackle it. So what do you
Right.
think? I mean, are you thinking maybe a committee to start, or?
So to start a committee to look into how we can increase our workforce housing, I feel like it's it's a critical issue for our little village.
Well, there is,
Comp
I
plan.
was gonna say, the comp plan, you could get on a committee.
Comp
the
plan
comp
is
plan.
housing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they combined it, right? It was housing and economy, right?
Yes.
Housing, yeah. So there is a,
Think
part of.
they're
the comp
actively
plan, so.
working on it?
They were.
I mean, it'd be at a
It's a,
higher,
it's a long-term,
yeah.
it's a long-term, solution, so to speak, long-term problem. So yeah. So
It'd be at a
I've been involved with the
You
comp
think
plan.
that's
I
I'm not on that
place to-
committee.
ran away from it, but
Yeah, I'm not on that committee.
Yeah.
I think it's timely that it's happening, and I think at a higher level, it identifies. It includes data points, to try and understand, to measure the problem, and at a higher level, it'll identify some policy solutions potentially. So there'd be work from it still. I think that's probably the fastest track, unless you wanted to put some staff capacity dedicated towards it. And have a separate committee working on it.
No, that would
While
be,
it's
then you'd
happening,
have,
I think
then you,
because
then you
comp
have to
plan-
coordinate with the comp plan.
Because the comp plan's happening, as long as we can keep that moving,
Done. I can't remember
you know,
exactly
that
what
they
it
could incorporate that as a strong consideration.
was. So that could be one of us.
So I guess maybe I should talk to the people on the comprehensive plan board.
Sure, yeah.
See
Um,
If I think they're, I don't know.
maybe you could ask
They're doing
Isabel to give her a call and give her the contact at the chair of
You
that
can get
committee
involved
or
with the comp
something.
plan, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just feel like I know so many people out there. I was just trying to help this young woman find a place. And there was one place on my house, on my street for rent, and they had like 25 applicants.
Mhm.
You know, which tells us we just don't have enough.
Mhm.
And these are people that want to work here.
Yeah.
And we have hopefully a couple more businesses opening and they're going to need people.
Yeah, I think once you start to get into the solutions or ways that, you know, we can talk about it, but if we're talking about meaningful ways to incentivize or encourage developers to do something, we're talking about, you know, having land or money to help presumably to get someone to do something about it, to build something.
Right.
And so looking at, does the town own land that it could use? Does the town try and find partners and encourage acquisition of land that could be built for, you know, in which, you know, some towns have done that, or housing trusts that, you know, have done this in as their own entity, right? And if you can acquire the land, you can kind of dictate what you want built on there, and
Mhm.
you subsidize that or incentivize that in some way. But you can kind of control what gets built. That's probably the best way to do it. Otherwise, yeah, it's through ordinances and, you know, ways to encourage it, and it gets a little complex.
It
Well,
does.
and-
I
yeah.
understand that it does that way, but
Mhm.
I'm just kind of searching for, you know, how can we, you know, what can we do?
Yep.
So
Well, check
maybe
out
I
the-
should
check
talk
out the
to you
comp
more
plan.
about it.
Yeah.
Start with
comp plan.
a conversation with Isabel while she's still here and working on the comp plan, and to see where she'd be the best to direct you with the comp plan efforts to see, is there a place to focus in on, or maybe be part of that committee of the comp plan.
She leaves one.
February
Just volunteered you for the comp
24th, I
plan.
think, is her last day working for the two
So she
towns.
leaves.
I was on it for about a week and I could tackle it, so I. So I'm not gonna be able to do that, so, yeah. Yeah, but it is an important, it's an important issue.
It's
but,
really
yeah, so,
important,
yeah.
you know, to the growth of our village.
Mhm.
You know, if we want to increase our TIF areas, that's really great, but if you don't have anyone to work in those businesses,
Oh, yeah, no, it's a catch 22 to
It
bring
is.
businesses in and have staffing, but meaningful
is.
businesses to provide for the jobs. So, yeah, exactly.
There are a few state
Connected.
bills that are being talked about around housing and workforce housing. And so the state's they had a whole commission they created the last year, the year before last, and had a report come out of that. So the state's looking at kind of statewide policies or programs and funding during this session. So you know, you're the main townsman, the magazine you have right now.
Yeah.
Legislative updates. I don't know if everyone gets those via mail or email. But the legislative updates kind of
Emails,
track
yeah.
the bills that are going forward. And so there's,
okay,
you know, as far as the state process goes, there's hearings when those get numbered, those bills get numbered, they eventually go to a public hearing of sorts, ideally, if they're moving forward. And then the committee will hear all that testimony that went into that, and it might move forward from there or not. But I think right now we just had an update from one of the main municipal staffers at our managers meeting Friday. And I think currently there's been 23 bills submitted, not that they're all numbered, but submitted, which is in the number that they usually see through 2 sessions of a legislature. And right now they're in the first session of this legislature, and they've already got that same more than what they got in the last 2 years.
wow.
So there's a lot happening at the state level
So
to
people are
consider.
moving.
Put them to work.
So there, I know, again, a handful of them are around this housing issue, workforce housing in particular.
Okay,
Okay, that's good
Cool.
to know.
thank you, Andrew. Yeah. Josh?
All good.
I have nothing to
Jeff was
add,
like, oh my God. don't
nothing to
talk
add myself, though.
I gave you my time. You had.
You
my
yielded your time.
time.
Make a motion, we adjourn. Second, Lou, Tom seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Yeah, I think everything's.